Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and a new card making video. Today we are making two shaker cards featuring products from This Calls for Confetti. It is my first time playing with their products and I wanted to show you exactly what I'm using. I have this honeysuckle stamp set, which is from the Alice's Story collection, and it has a coordinating die. You can see it there, and it's going to cut out those honeysuckle flowers, the vase, the sentiments, and a heart. Then we have a elongated frame die set with the word hello. This is really cool. It's going to make a great shaker. Then we have our happy layering die set. Got to love layering die sets, and I like this one because on the inside it's got rectangles that like go the other way, rectangles you can use for sentiments, and then of course we have some of their confetti to put in our shaker cards. So we're going to start out with a little technique because the vase for these flowers is like a really solid bold image, so I thought it would be fun to give it a little bit of texture. I'm going to use Lost Shadow as my first color, and I'm using Distress Oxide ink because I'm actually going to layer up the ink on top of each other for this technique. So Lost Shadows going down on the vase, I made sure to ink it up really well, and then I have a piece of shelf liner, and I'm going to use that with the burnt timber. Is that the name of it? I think so. And then I'm going to press that into the ink pad, transferring ink onto that shelf liner. Then I'll press the shelf liner onto my already inked up image, and it transfers on there so beautifully. Look at that. I love it. I really feel this has the look of like a vase that's concrete, where they've pressed into it. I love the look. It's so cool. You have to let me know what you think, and think of all the different things that you could do this technique with on this vase to make it really like stand out. Okay, so I still had ink on there. I thought I'd go ahead and stamp it again and see if I got anything. It is much lighter, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to work with it, and I'm going to add to it a little bit. And what I'm doing is taking that burnt timber. I really feel like that's maybe not the name of it. Okay, and I am taking a little finger sponge dauber and just tapping ink around the edge of this to really help define like the shape of this vase. You know, I don't want it to just look like a blob. So adding that little bit of ink really was the finishing touch on this second piece. And you know, the paper and the stamp were still aligned in my MISTI, so it was really easy to do. So there's my two vases. Now we're going to stamp out the floral image, and then there's also just a branch with leaves on it right there. I Googled honeysuckle and decided I was going to go with the traditional yellow colors, mostly because it matches my shaker bits, right? But also they have these, they come in, doesn't make sense when it's like a thing from nature. But there's also honeysuckle in like a coral red color. I actually have some in a flower pot on my front porch, and so I kind of wanted to do that, but I really wanted to stick with my original plan to do yellow to match my shaker bits. So just know you can color these in other colors. And now this image, the little individual petals on the flowers are really small. So I just used two colors and it was really easy to do. I kept the darker color at the bottom of the petal and then the lighter color at the top. I did two shades of green on the leaves, and they're really easy to color, very quick. And you can see there how it totally matched the shaker bits because there's lighter and darker colors of yellow. Okay, now it's time to die cut out all the things with the coordinating dies, and they die cut out beautifully with like a nice white border around the edge, and I think they're gorgeous. I don't know what, always when I die cut things out, it brings it to life for me, and I always think, oh my gosh, it's so cute. Okay, so there's both faces. We've got all the things ready to go, so let's jump in to card number 1. I am using that Hello elongated frame set. I'm actually going to use that outer piece, and then I'm going to die cut the oval part that has embossed lines in it from some heavyweight paper it's just kind of a off white color, almost taupey, and I thought it would go really well with my vases. You can see here that I am running this through my die machine again with my adapter plate and my embossing pad that come with the universal plate system from Spellbinders to really define those embossed lines. All right, we're turning this into a shaker, so we've got to have a window sheet on the back of our frame. So I'm gluing that on the back of that yellow frame piece, which I did die cut from some textured cardstock just to add a little bit more. I don't use my textured cardstock as much as I used to or as much as I'd like, but I think it really added to this simple card front. So then next step for my shaker is to add the foam tape. So this is some narrow foam tape so I can go all the way around that frame. And you can see I just curved it around. Now if you have foam tape that's a little bit harder to curve around, take the backing off and curve it around and it will usually be a lot easier. I'm just laying things out now how I want them to go on my final card because I want to stamp on that white background piece. So I have a honeysuckle on the inside of my shaker as well. So I just, kind of figuring out where I want it to be, and then I'll go ahead and stamp that down with the Misty again and black ink and color it up just like I did with the flowers on the front, but no die cutting this time. I've got my anti-static powder tool there, and I'm using that to reduce the static on the window sheet and get any oiliness that might be on my paper from my fingers so that my shaker bits can freely move about in this little reservoir that I have created. You just want to make sure when you do your foam tape that the ends touch so none of the tiny little bits will escape when this card gets shaken, right? Okay, we're ready to put it together, so let's peel the backing off our foam tape and then don't forget the backing on the side pieces and add on this panel right here. Now, it is the same size as my card front, so I'm really trying to look straight down onto it and make sure it's lined up. But if it doesn't get exactly lined up, which mine did not, shocker, then you just want to take some scissors and trim off any that might be peeking out. And it's really easy to do, kind of depending on where your foam tape is, but mine was easy to trim off. And now I can really set to gluing things in place and creating the front of this card. Then I'm going to use the word hello, but I wanted to have more of that timber color, scorched timber, that's the name of it. It's right there on the screen. I knew I was wrong. All right, so I'm just taking a white piece of paper. I've got my Blending Buddy brush from Trinity Stamps there, and I'm creating an ombre piece of paper. And then you can see how it's darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, but it just wasn't dark enough for me. So with my little dauber that I used on the stamp earlier, I am creating a darker bottom portion of this ombre sentiment, and I like it so much better. But I also wanted it to be thicker so it'd stand up off this card, but just a little bit. So I actually die cut out the word hello from some lightweight chipboard that comes with like packaging to make it nice and sturdy and also popped up off of my card. And I just love the look of this, to have your sentiment nice and sturdy. I don't know why it transforms it just enough to make it a little bit more special. So I did 2 layers of that, and then it can go down onto my card and it'll be slightly raised up. I didn't want it super thick because this card is already thick because it's a shaker card. So that's what I did, and then I added this onto an A2 size card base. So that would be an 8.5 by 5.5 piece of cardstock scored at 4 1/4 inches. Now to decorate the inside, I like to take that same floral image with some yellow ink and stamp it on the inside, and it's really easy to then write over once you start writing with like your black pen on the inside, so it can cover that up, but it still adds a really pretty element on the inside. And that's card number 1. I love the bright colors on this card, and the yellow just makes me happy. All right, let's move on to card number 2. We're going to just change things up a little bit on this one. We're starting with that happy layering set. I am trying to pull off and keep together all of the rectangle dies. That didn't work, so I worked very carefully to line these up, and what I'm going to do is not die cut with them, but emboss with them. So you can see I've turned that cardstock so that it is face down, added my embossing pad and my adapter plate, and ran that through the die machine. This is some pretty heavy cardstock. That's what's going to work best. If you have lightweight cardstock, it's still going to cut it. So I decided then to put a window into this paper, which I probably should have done before adding the frames so that I didn't kind of press out that embossing, but it ended up working out in the end. It's just a little bit less puffy on my embossed frames around the edge. All right, so to go around the window, I die cut out two of the frames that were the closest in size to create an actual frame. And I did that from some yellow cardstock. And then I wanted to stamp on this before I turn it into my shaker. So I used the sentiment from the honeysuckle set that says sweet as, and then I will have the word honeysuckle in the middle and then on the vine. There is a story about the sentiment on the website and on the back of the packaging. So make sure you check that out because it's really touching. All right, now we're going to emboss. So I'm using my anti-static powder tool from the Rabbit Hole Designs and stamping out that large, bold sentiment that says honeysuckle. Now I'm doing this on white cardstock and I am using some fancy powder. It's like a pastel gemstone collection from Wow, and it's yellow with flecks of gold in it. It is gorgeous powder. And because I'm stamping that down with a block and not my MISTI, I really made sure to leave the stamp on the paper a little bit longer than I normally would, because the longer you hold your stamp there, the more ink will transfer. Now, when I embossed this, I was not very happy with it because I got a lot of the yellow powder, but not a lot of the gold. And I actually think there's white flecks in it as well. So it was just really plain. Yeah, so I redid it. I got a lot more of the gold flecks in there and I was much happier with this. So that is that powder in all its glory. It's very cool. I die cut it out with a coordinating die, which is going to bubble cut around this so perfectly. I love a bubble cut sentiment. And then there it is. So now we're going to work on the shaker portion of our card. We're going to actually stamp on the little piece on the inside like we did on the first card. So I'm just lining up the windows with my background and then I'll know exactly where I want to stamp it. And I colored it up and everything. So there it is, a little peek of that honeysuckle there, and I love it. Okay, then on to our elements to create a shaker card. We need our window sheet on the back of the window. Then we need some foam tape. So here I am adding my foam tape, making sure that all of the ends touch, especially because on this one I actually added in some micro beads. And with the micro beads, they're so tiny, you want to make sure nothing can escape, right? It can't get out those little cracks. So I added my anti-static powder. I added in my This Calls for Confetti mix and then my micro beads. And here you can see they're so tiny and they can get out. So another little tip I like to do is when you're about to put this card together, you removed the backing, you can take a little glue and put the glue in the cracks where the foam tape meets. It's kind of like when you're doing tile and you put in grout. And that helps. So once I laid the honeysuckle sentiment on there, I just felt like it got lost. I didn't love it on the white paper. So I decided to use that same kind of craft colored cardstock that I already used for my card front. And I did use the same exact embossing powder, but you can see it kind of transforms it and it looks a little bit like actual honey. So I loved it. I decided to stick with that. All right. Now that I've done my sentiment 3 times, I think we can move on to building up the rest of the card front. So I am putting the flowers in the vase. I am putting the leaves in the vase, and I did have to trim off a little bit because I really wanted the flowers to really like hang over to the side a lot so I could fit it on this horizontal oriented A2 card. So then we have the backing put on. Now my one regret about the backing is that honeysuckle that's stamped inside is so lost behind my sentiment. I didn't think about it till way later. I wish I would have stamped it a little higher, but you know, hindsight, it'll be okay. So here's the crazy thing I decided to do on this card. But you know, when I think of it, I decide I'm just gonna go for it, right? It's just paper. Plus, I want you to see all the things. Like maybe you wouldn't try this at home if I didn't show it to you. So I put glaze over that entire vase. I let it dry literally like overnight. I just walked away, came back the next day, and there is my shaker, and the glaze on this vase was the thing that this card needed. It needed an extra pop of shine, and I love how it turned out. Okay, let's listen to these completed shaker cards. I hope that this video has given you a little bit of inspiration to create your own shaker cards. And if you love shaker cards, check out my Facebook group, Shaker Card Addicts. I'd love to have you join us and share your creations or be inspired by other people's shaker card creations. Now, if you're interested in any of the products I use, I have them linked for you below. And I will see you all again very soon with a new paper crafting video. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you then. Happy stamping! Bye!